What's going on, guys? It's Riot with Riot Tech, and today we have a review of the LGG Neptune. So when we talk about the Neptune, and we talk about the Neptune as a planet, and we talk about the Neptune being icy, will this mousepad help you ice up when you need it in certain situations? No. If you suck, you suck. But we can talk about the mouse pad, so let's get into it. All right, so getting into the pad, whenever we're talking about the Neptune, the closest thing that I have that I can compare it to is going to be the Kurosen Ninja. And as we talk about kind of how the pad performs, I'm really comparing against the Ninja because I feel like it's pretty close, but definitely has a couple of differences. So starting with the very first thing that I typically talk about being the stitching. The stitching of the pad in both cases are very good. I think the Neptune does have a little bit of a better stitching, at least on the sides. Whenever you have any kind of movement across the stitching, not like that would be an issue. As you're getting up to the edge of the Ninja, you are going to come across a ridge where you feel the stitching of the pad, where you're not going to feel that with the Neptune. Again, if you're having that issue, I would just recommend a bigger pad because you just need more space. As we talk about the base of the pad, the Kurosen Ninja had an alpha cell base, and at least in terms of alpha cell, I think Kurosen did a very, very, very good job, at least in terms of the alpha cell base. I think the closest that I've seen, at least in terms of performance, was the updated version of the Samurai, or the P51 Samurai from Pure Track. I think both of them, both the updated base or the updated alpha cell base from Pure Track as well as the Ninja Pad, had a very good implementation of the alpha cell. However, I think in general, for most of the pads that came out with an alpha cell base, there tended to be an issue with consistency over time. And especially whenever it came to humidity, there being an issue, at least in terms of performance of the pad, again, because of the way that the just alpha cell works. So when we're talking about the Neptune has a Japanese rubber base, and honestly, the Japanese base on top of the surface, which I'll get into in a minute, I think really helps the performance of this pad. So whenever we're talking about the comparison between the Neptune and the Ninja, the Neptune is faster, but it also has a tiny bit of texture on the surface of the pad. Compared to the Ninja that doesn't have any texture at all, it's very, very smooth. And I mean, again, whenever we're talking about both of these pads together, this has no texture, this has a tiny bit. But I think the little bit of the texture, the base, the Japanese rubber base that they're using really helps the performance of this pad when we're comparing it against something like the Ninja. So overall, in terms of speed, I'll kind of go back to the base in a second, but when we're talking about the surface and the speed of the pad, these are very similar. I think the Neptune is faster than the Ninja. I think overall, I mean, both of these pads don't have very much static friction or dynamic friction in either case, but the Neptune is going to be faster than the Ninja. And as you're playing on the Neptune, I mean, one of the things that I noticed, kind of going back to what I mentioned before, with the Japanese rubber base on top of the surface that they used with a little bit of a texture, overall, I feel like as I'm playing with both of these pads, I feel a little more controlled and a little more locked in when it comes to flicking and target switching on this pad than on the Ninja. So when we're talking about just the performance of the pad in general, you would expect that this pad, I would need to have more control of my mouse compared to the Ninja, since this is a little faster, but I kind of feel the opposite. I mean, again, This doesn't have a whole lot of static or dynamic friction in either case, but I feel like just in terms of overall performance whenever I'm playing, I feel more locked in, target switching or flicking from target to target. Whereas this, I feel like I kind of have to hold back a little bit more. So at least in terms of, I guess, overall stopping power, I feel like this has a little bit better stopping power in terms of the speed than you would have on the Ninja. And I will say this was my favorite pad of 2023 whenever it comes to speed. So putting both of these together, I'm really interested to see how the V2 version of the Ninja feels, because again, I feel this has a little bit more speed than the Ninja, but I feel a lot more locked in on the Neptune than I do the Ninja. All right, so there is one thing that I did forget to mention. So going back to the base, as I was talking about the stopping power of the comparison between both the Neptune and the Ninja, I do think the base really does help the stopping power and the feeling of control that you get from the surface of the Neptune. So I really am excited to see the new V2 version of the Ninja, because I feel like it'll be an even better comparison between the two, especially whenever the V2 version comes out. It is directly getting compared to the Neptune whenever it does. So with that being said, whenever we're talking about the Neptune in general, it is one of the fastest pads on the market. It doesn't have a lot of static or dynamic friction at all. It's a very fast cloth pad, but you get a really good amount of stopping power. And again, whenever it comes to just playing in general, I feel really locked in, and that's after using the Ninja for months at this point. With that being said, if you have any questions or comments about the Neptune or anything that you want to see next, as always, feel free to throw them in the comment section below. And with that, I will catch you all next week. Peace.